Okay, we're going to start off with a metaphorical 2 minutes of silence, just coming into the room and just focusing on being present. So I'm just going to not have any music playing on at all, but just close your eyes if you feel safe closing your eyes, or turn off your screen, and then take some time to breathe, let anything go of the day. I found a really great quote for this. So we're going to practice breathing in the best and breathing out the rest. Okay, if we can take a collective breath in and a collective breath out, we'll go ahead and begin the workshop process. So I would like to start with introductions. So my name is Alexandra Hernandez. I'm an artist here in Dallas, multidisciplinary. I work in a little bit of everything, theater, dance. I mostly work with Anita Martinez Ballet Folklorico. I'm the artistic director there, but then I also collaborate and work with other organizations and dance groups and theaters. Basically anywhere that will take me, I'm there. So artistic statement, what's the difference between an artistic statement and a bio? Does anybody know, or anybody like to take a stab? And then, like I said, if you would like to use the chat instead, please feel free to do the chat, and either Ophelia or I can read it out loud. Oh, okay.
Do I?
Yes, Brittany?
Should I turn my camera? Hold on. Yeah. I don't have on a lot of clothes, y'all. Hey, y'all. It's hot-ish in here. So I would say that an artist statement versus a bio is like, with your bio is just giving your who, what, when, where, like the W's and H's, right? Just like who you are, where you're from. But your artistic statement allows you to kind of go more in depth about like why it is you do what you do, and like why you are who you are. Yeah, kind of like, yeah, like your drive and all like the little oomphs, like inspirations and things like that.
Yeah, yes, so that is that's correct. The big difference between an artistic statement and a bio is a bio will list your training, it will list who you've trained with, what you've done, who you've worked with, and your artistic statement is really you have, and the sentences and the words that you have to express who you really are, why you art, like why you have to do this. I feel like one of the most important things about artistic statements and what makes them hard to produce is you really have to know who you are, why you are creating whatever kind of art that it is you're creating. You can, I think that's what makes it so hard, is if you don't take the time to go through, I make dance for this reason, or I am this type of artist, then it becomes much more difficult to write an artistic statement. So that's going to be our anchor of what we're doing today. So I would like to go around, let's use the chat for so that I can be everybody's time. But if everybody in the chat, if they can type in your name, and then how you choose to culturally identify, if that's important for people to know. And then if you want to also disclose your pronouns that you use, let's just start with that. And then I'll talk while people are putting that in the chat. And so, for example, like my chat would be, my name is Alexandra Hernandez, multidisciplinary performance artist. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. And then I identify as a Chicana Indigenous artist. Okay. So a little bit about naming ourselves. Like I said, the anchor of an artistic statement is knowing who you are, right? So in Mexican tradition, those people who might be Mexican or of Mexican descent, my experience has been when you go into smaller towns, they're like, who's your mom? Who's your dad? Who's your grandma? Who's your grandpa? Like, who's your great grandma? So you have to, like, you have to know where you come from, right? And so I know that when I go to the little rancho that my family's from, they're like, oh, whose daughter are you? Before they figure out what my name is, like, whose daughter are you? Who's your grandfather? Who's your great grandfather? Which I think is really lovely, a lovely way of like people knowing who you are in the community. So my grandfather was a teacher in Mexico, and everybody knows him as profe. So anybody who's related to them is la hija del profe or los nietos del profe, which is the grandkids of the professor. So it also informs us of who you are in the community. And then this is something racial healing. One of the workshops they did that kind of imprinted on me. It's like the most powerful thing you can do is to name yourself. So again, this anchoring of knowing who you are. So I'm going to read through some of these. I won't read through all of them. So we have Raquel Zamora, and please excuse me if I mispronounce anything. Pronouns they, them. Yoemi, Indigenous. We have Ofelia Faz Garza, she, her, ella. Chicana, Tejana, Mexicana, cultural promotora and poet. Angel Faz, multidisciplinary artist, they, them. Chicana Indigenous. Anita Sanchez, she, her, Chicana Latinx community event organizer and multifaceted artist. Cheyenne Raquel Farley, biracial Tejana, she, her, ella, multidisciplinary artist, music, theater, and writing. Priya Matthew, Indian American, she, her, multidisciplinary artist. I'll do one more. My name is Brittany Stubblefield Ingram. I'm sorry if I had never heard your second last name, Brittany. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. My pronouns are she, they, and I am a Black woman. So we have quite a few of different identities that we will be working with today. So basing on this, we're going to take, I think we can do 5 to 7 minutes. There's going to be about 12 questions I would like for you to answer, all in bullet point. So just one word, if possible, to answer these questions. And I will also put them in the chat. And then actually, Ophelia, could I share my screen? It'll probably be easier to do this one. So it's almost like we just want to do, what is it called? Freeform when we're writing these. So questions 1 through 6 are mandatory, and then 6 through 11 are quote unquote extra credit. So whatever you would like to write on, notebook, paper, notebook and paper, computer, tablet, phone, whatever works for you. I would like us to do at least questions 1 through 6, and then, I'm sorry, 1 through 5, and then 6 through 11 if we have time. And I will play some music, and somebody asked, okay, never mind. So we'll go ahead and start that timer now. If anything is unclear or I need to zoom in the screen and make it a little bigger, let me know. Okay, if we can take about another minute or two to start wrapping up our thoughts. Okay. I really tried to fade that out, y'all, so it wasn't so abrupt, but it did not happen. Okay, so we're gonna come back and we're gonna share out. I'll leave the questions up on the shared screen, if that's helpful to people. But if we can share, if I can have some volunteers to share, you can at least 3 of the questions. And then, yeah, so yeah, I think at least 3 of the questions for your group. I'm sorry, 3 of the questions that you would like to share. And then if you can just use the little hand, and then that way we can go through, kind of have an order so we don't have people talking over each other. Do we have anybody that wants to go? It's that, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Nicole?
Yes, Nicole.
Nicole? Okay, yes.
Okay, so to pick 3 of them, I liked actually number 5 with Why Do You Art? And I put it because it's my authentic truth. Just, my way to seriously, put it out there to, touch people that I want to touch in the community. What type of artist are you? That was kind of hard for me because I do a lot. So I just put multimedia creator because I do journalists, but also produce, write, and do documentaries or whatever. And as far as number 4, I guess for my 3rd one, as far as the elements that's important to you and do you use often, I kind of didn't understand what really that you were asking, but for me, I put what's more important to me is media and journalism, to being able to, get that out. It's other stuff that I do or whatever, but to me, those are my 3.
Okay, yeah. And if there's anything that in the questions or any of the other language that's in the workshop that doesn't make sense, please let me know. And so elements, I mean, it is kind of vague. It can be like if you use video a lot,
Okay.
why is it important to use video?
Okay.
Important because you don't see a lot of people that look like you or come from your experience making videos, or is it important because it's an easy medium for people to access? And so
Right,
we can kind of explore those different things.
Oh, okay. So I was almost there. Okay, yeah. So, well, yeah, it's definitely the video part or whatever, because a lot of people don't get to see what goes on in our community, especially events and stuff because that's what we do. So we get to go around a lot and we get to capture these events, and then we get to show them back to the community. So people that don't see it, sometimes it's stuff just around the corner and they don't even know it's there. So once they see it, then they'll be able to go to it and stuff. So yeah, so those are my three.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
You're
Does
welcome.
somebody else want to share? Rocky, do you want to share?
Yeah, I'll put my camera on for this. Hello. I want to answer question number 2, 5, and 6. What type of artist are you? I see myself as a storyteller, movement. I always put movement artist because I do dancing and I also do stunt work. And then there's performances that requires like a lot of movement, like when I played like a rooster for Family Dollar, kind of those kind of elements. So I put movement artist and actor. Why do you art? I art because the type of art that I do, especially the storytelling, I do that because our history is not told correctly in schools and museums and such, which is something I know you know. And that's why I do my art. It's not something for me. It's something that I do for our people and for our ancestors so that we can put our real stories out there and so that people can learn the real history. And how do you tell your stories and why? When I do my storytelling, what I've started to do lately is that's why I like doing movement, and I like adding drums. And what I recently added last year was projecting mapping. And the reason why I do that is so that people can actually have a visualization of seeing these stories instead of just me putting words out there. They have an actual image to put in their minds of, say, like who Matoa Aka is, who is, people know her as Pocahontas, right? But like putting that image there of how she really looks. So, and then when I started adding the drum, since I have a hand drum now, and I just add more essence to the storytelling. And same thing with the movement, just being elaborate with my movement and what I do. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Rocky. I feel like most people have jumped into the next step. And so we'll share with sentences. One of the reasons that I wanted people to kind of bullet point it, because it really makes us boil down to what's important of like, why do we art or what type of artists that we do. But sentences are okay. So please continue to share sentences if that's how you have them written. So no worries. If you have the bullet points, cool too. Whichever one you would like to share, but thank you for sharing, Rocky. Ophelia, did you by any chance see who raised their hand first?
I didn't. Whoever, you can let somebody else go.
Okay. But one more thing I wanted to comment on Rocky's is that the questions did make her, did make them really kind of go into this explanation or this internalization of like why it was important for them, right? And so that's kind of what we want to start working towards, right? I use video, and then we heard it in Nicole's too. I use what's going on in our communities. So that representation, if we were to condense that down to one word, we are looking at representation. We are looking at collective memory of stories, right? There's a collective memory within the Indigenous community. There's a collective memory within non-Indigenous community of how history is told. So I thought it kind of starts bringing us down to what if we have 3 to 5 sentences, or if we have 300 words or less, what is the most important thing I have to say about being an artist? So we're going to keep on moving, but I just wanted to highlight those 2 things that I thought were really good, that stood out to me. Priscilla, would you like to go next? So we'll do Priscilla. I'm just going down my screen. Priscilla, Cheyenne, and Brittany.
Sure, I'll be happy to go next. Mine was super short. I just was thinking like first like words that came to my mind. what type of artist am I? I said, I'm like, well, what's the one word? I would say cultural. I would say that's the type of artist I am. It's based on cultura. I would say for what artistic elements are important to you and why do you use them? I said voz, because to me it's important. Well, I don't know if I have to elaborate. Do I have to elaborate?
You can if you want to.
Because I feel that that's important, the voice of nuestra gente, especially women that look like me. So I feel like no matter what type of genre, whether it's poetry or movement or acting, I feel that the most important thing is our voice. Our voice is heard. And why? How do you define booty? A booty? Did I say booty? Beauty? Oh my god. Yeah. I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. Que vergüenza. No, how do you define beauty? Oh man, that's funny. I said alma is, you know, the soul of who we are. That's how I define beauty. So that's what I got.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Priscilla. That was really good. I just want to be mindful of time, so we're gonna go ahead with Cheyenne.
Gotta unmute. Here we are. Still can't remember. Okay, let's see. I said that the I guess artistic elements I use the most are going to be like written word, and then also sound or voice, like singing wise. And then I said, honestly, I just wrote because I feel too damn much. And I just feel like this overwhelming amount of feeling and I need to get it out some way. And then when words aren't enough, adding sound to that. And then for why do I art? I just said to examine and define the human experience, to be with community and build community and give voice to unheard narratives. And then let's see, what else did I say? What else do I want to share? Sorry, I should have prepared more before I was like, okay. And then 10, like, what do I value? I said love, community, and acceptance.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing the themes of representation coming up a lot, having a voice or having sound. And then with feeling is the right to expression. I think sometimes our society is like, we got to work through this and we got to just like, we're consistently going and it doesn't give us space to process feelings or to feel feelings or to kind of explore, like, why are we feeling sad? Is it because of climate change? I don't know. Or like, why are we feeling this anger? And so I think being an artist gives us a vehicle to take that energy and transform it. And if that is something that you want to do as an artist, to take, you know, this, whatever this feeling is, whether it's sadness through art therapy, you know, those are important things to include in your statement. I think one of the other things that's important to have in your artistic statement is to know that you're envisioning a future, right? So through your artistic statement, even though you might not always say my end goal is to, you know, whatever the end goal is, what you are doing through your work is taking you towards a goal, right? And so if you are directing choirs, you know, you're uplifting communities and you're giving them voice. What does that do for a generation of youth? You know, one generation, 2 generations later. So the important things to consider. Thank you for sharing, Cheyenne. And then we had, did we have somebody next? I forgot. Ophelia, you want to go next?
Yeah, I was just going to share that it's interesting on my 2 and 4. For 2, I put poet and cultural promotora because that's, I think, the easiest way to describe what I do in my head. But once I answered number 4, I think the box that I use to describe myself is pretty small. But once I really kind of look at the materials that I use, what I do, and all of these things, that little box is kind of overflowing. So I really need to spend some more time. I think a lot of times, like especially because I when I'm writing grants and things, I try to simplify things. But I think in simplifying things, I'm really selling myself short. So I just wanted to say that these are actually like really good questions, and it's really making me kind of think about like my process and the words that I use to describe how and what I do. So that was just kind of like a light bulb moment for me. And I wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing, Ophelia. Yeah, I really feel like the first sentence is the appetizer. You know, who you are, what's your name, what do you do? And then everything else is either supporting that sentence or elaborating on what that sentence is. So that first sentence can stay short, right? This is who I am, this is what I do, this is what is important to me, this is, you know, maybe the community that I serve. Do you work with older adults? Do you work with the LGBTQ plus community? Those are like your, like, let's say our jewels, right? And then everything else supports that. So why do you work with, you know, our older adults community? Lack of representation, opportunities for them to continue to, you know, be a full human being, you know, if they don't have kids or if they don't have like family nearby, so that they're able to continue to participate in community. So those are all things that are, I think that they can, everything that comes after those first, you know, 1 to 2 sentences support that. So that first sentence, like you said, Ophelia, it could be small, it could be very compact, and then use everything else to really tell us who you are. An artistic statement is also very much a way to storytell who you are. So don't sell yourself short, right? And I think with grants and with applications, everything can be tailored to grants and applications except for your artistic statement. Like that is the one thing that you cannot sell, right? You can't sell that because that is who you are. So it's really important that you have something that's very solid, and your artistic statement will change. I feel like you should be writing your artistic statement twice a year, and rewriting and figuring out how that's changing for you every, you know, maybe after a big project that you work on. You know, what are the things in the process that you value? Do you still value them after the process, after you've produced a big project or a small project, any project? Do you feel like some of those values shift? And then maybe you've become more aligned with equity and diversity, for example. And so maybe that's become more important to you with a certain experience you've had. So those are all really important things that kind of lets us take a step back and really look at, okay, is why I'm doing art still the same reason as it was earlier this year or before this project? I believe I saw Christina. Would you like to go next?
Sure. I wrote that I'm a multimedia artist, that I identify as multi-ethnic Tejana, and what artistic elements are important to you. And I guess we meant media by that. And I use metals and found materials and digital and traditional drawing medias and painting media.
Okay. Anything that was maybe confusing in the way that the questions were? I know you said the elements, you brought up elements again.
Well, elements like, and I guess kind of a classical art education sense, well, there are things like rhythm and form and like color. So at first I was like, oh, well, what elements are usually present in my artwork? And I was talking about like contrast and texture. But as far as like what kinds of, like what mediums I make art in, that would be metals and found materials and digital and traditional drawing and painting mediums, like
Okay.
watercolor, ink, but I also do digital art as well.
Okay. Thank you for sharing, Christina. And then I saw Michael's hand, I believe.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For me, I'm really just trying to develop some certain things in myself. This type of an artist, in the ways I've introduced myself or exposed myself have been through music or anecdotally, perhaps. But as far as why do you art, again, being able to expose or express myself in that way is a little vague for me, but it's more obligation than anything. I do things because I'm pulled towards something or some element or some concern or issue, and I just try to develop myself in that or engross myself in that and be a part of exposure of something usually that other people already have going, and I'm just kind of open branched right now.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. So I heard the word obligation, and I would like to offer maybe like an alternate word of either a calling or an inheritance. There's a word in Spanish called that it refers to when your grandparents had artistic talent and the kids don't get it, but the grandkids get the artistic talent. So it's, I think it's called abuelado. And so it's something that you inherit that skips a generation, but it usually refers to like a specific trade or a talent. And so in my, like my personal thing is like, I feel like everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing, especially when we're listening to that internal voice, wherever that voice lives, whether it's here, you know, in our gut. And so when we are pulled to something, it's usually because that's what we're supposed to do. And I think that's something that's very, very powerful, and sometimes isn't recognized enough. And so I think outside of it being an obligation, you know, it's also, it is an obligation because it is a responsibility, you know, if that's something that's part of your DNA, but it is also like a calling or something that you're inheriting. And I think sometimes we overlook inheritance of artists. And so, you know, if you're, my closest example would be mariachi. Like if your grandfather's a mariachi and you're a mariachi, and then the next, you know, the son is a mariachi and the grandson, you know, that's an inherited talent, and something that can definitely go into your artistic statement of coming from a multi-generational family that has continued, you know, the specific art form.
Okay, thank you.
And then Anita, I saw Anita next.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. So the questions that stuck out to me most, number 6, how do you tell your stories and why? I tell mine through poetry, through healing, through honesty and self-reflection. Another one that stuck out to me was, how do you create beauty in your world? And for me, a lot of that is through actively sharing my healing, actively sharing who I am through my reparenting of myself. So those are with other people. That's how I create beauty in my world. And then what do you value? I value connections, I value art, and I value chosen family.
Thank you for sharing, Anita. I'm just making like little notes as I'm hearing people share, so I don't forget what I want to say. So, yeah, so I did hear healing a lot and sharing, the sharing of like a healing journey. So I think researching into, so I think before and I mean you as in general, not specifically Anita, but I think if there are terms that you're interested in or terms that you're like, oh, I feel like this probably describes what I'm doing, I highly encourage you to do some pretty deep diving Google research, read some books, like really kind of look at what that term means in different perspectives before starting to use, specific terms, like trauma-informed yoga. That's a really big thing that's kind of been coming out a lot. But what does that actually mean? Does it mean that you have specific training? Because once you put that in an artistic statement, if let's say Anita's a yoga teacher and she's like, I'm doing trauma-informed yoga to help people heal through their bodies. And if somebody says, oh, this is great, like I want to have her, come, but she doesn't have any trauma yoga training, then, there's kind of like an aspect where like, she can totally get the training, like that's not a problem. And she can start walking that path if that's where she's supposed to be. But I just highly suggest like these terms, as they start coming up, there's like terms in grants that are like fashionable, right? And so this term starts coming up a lot. BIPOC starts being more popular than people of color. And so really taking time to see what those words mean before you start using them in your artistic statements. So just like a heads up. But if trauma informed or trauma prevention or healing work is something that you're doing, those are really powerful things that can be included in your statement. And then who are you doing it with, or who are you doing it for? Is it poetry for community in public spaces? Is it poetry in hospitals or hospice care? So those are all kind of, we can be a poet, but which community are we serving? And so that kind of like supports more the work that we're doing. Thank you for being my example, Anita. Okay, and then I saw Angel, or do you prefer Faz?
Oh, either's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Faz.
Well, I'm really like learning a lot. I really don't like writing artist statements, and I usually have written one per project or per like exhibition, but I struggle with the artist statement itself. And I guess the number I'll speak to is probably number 4. What artistic elements are important to you and do you use often? I kind of was struggling with this one because I put place, land, identity, history, ecology, reclamation, and then those are like the things, I guess the themes. And then but what I actually do is with printmaking, digital projections, installation, and street art and workshops. So that's what I'd like to share.
Okay. And so I'm thinking about how I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Do you feel like it's hard? I'm going to ask it as a question. Do you feel that it's hard to connect those two ideas, or what? It seemed like you were saying that there's a little bit like there's what you do, and then there's and maybe I understood incorrectly, what you do or how you present your art, and then what you're like super interested in advocating, or what you're trying to communicate through your art.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably the latter. It's like when they ask you to, what elements you use, like it's kind of like how Christina said, like, do you think about the output, or do you think about like the theme? Yeah.
Okay. I think it's more of if we were to think in like an academia type linear fashion, is that what you use is supported by how you use it. So if we're using, for example, digital media or digital projection, what is it about digital media or projection that supports the land back movement? Is it because you are literally taking a piece of land back and being able to project whatever you want onto it, what you want us to feel or see? Is it because it creates equitable access, more equitable access to our audience and to be able to learn about the land back movement? Is it just because more people are visual now because of phones, and that's why you use digital media, because it's the easiest way to access people? So those can be kind of like ways that, yeah, I use digital projection. I'm not a digital person, so I'm sorry if I'm calling it the wrong thing, but I'm using digital projection because any of those reasons, and using this specific medium supports this specific idea that I'm trying to convey. Does that make sense? Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. That does make sense.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Kaz. Oh, we are at 8 o'clock. Do we have anybody who needs to like go or leave right now? We'll go, Ophelia, are we able to run like maybe like 10 minutes over?
Yes, if everybody is okay with that, just want to be respectful of everyone's time, but if the group is fine with that, then yeah, we can definitely do that.
Okay, I know there's some people that I've been trying to check the participant list that haven't had a chance to share. Brittany, I believe I saw your hand. Did you want to share? It's okay if you didn't, but
I did, but I was worried about time, so I put my hand down because it was I didn't want to like run over time, but I don't mind sharing if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Number 6 stuck out to me. So how do you tell your stories and why? So I wrote poetry, screenplays, short stories, and social media posts. And I did so that there are different consumables for people. And then number 5, why do you art? I put to storytell, to world build, to heal, to invoke emotion, and to document. And then number 4, what artistic elements are important to you and do you use often? So I was confused because I didn't know if you like meant like the actual artistic elements, like the elements of art. I think my brain got way too technical. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. But then just for myself, I just put using colloquial language in AAVE. Just because that's my story and that's how I choose to write and tell my stories.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Brittany. Yeah, I thought language, so we have a lot of poets in the group, or a lot of people who are poet writers. And so I think language might be something that would be really great to include into the artistic statement. And how do you make language work for what you are trying to convey? So Brittany talked about language and then I immediately thought connection with the type of language that she is using and how she writes her poetry. So like, is that a way that you connect to the community? Do you use Spanish mostly in your poetry? Do you use Spanglish? Do you use other languages in your poetry or in your written work? And why? Like, why is it important that you use, multi-language in your multi or bilingual for your written work? So that's also something that can support that, my name is Ophelia, I'm a writer or I'm a poet, and my poetry contains these following elements or these following items or ideas, because the work that I do needs to be accessible to bilingual communities or multilingual communities. And then Maribel, I think you wanted to share too. And then if anybody wants to share after Maribel, I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more people to share.
Yeah, okay. Why do you art? I've been making art, I think, since I was very little, and I didn't realize that that's what I was doing until very recently. I started considering myself an artist, mostly because I'm not trained in anything. I just did what I did because it felt good. And so basically it's therapeutic. And that's pretty much why I started arting from a very, very young age. I haven't really shared most of the things that I've created. But yeah, therapeutic for sure. And then when I wrote the book, I feel like it was supposed to just be a project for myself to document my family's history, because I am the oldest grandchild from both sides of the family, and a lot of my cousins were born years and years later, so I feel like they didn't get a lot of knowledge and information about our family history, and they just don't know. So I started documenting a lot of stuff, and it these stories turned into a book, and it just took off. And I feel like that's at that time, that's when I realized, okay, I guess I am an artist. And I don't know, the whole denial and like I'm not good enough and stuff like that crept in, like I'm pretty sure everybody in here has gone through. But I've also feel like after writing that book, I also do a lot of drawing and now writing a little bit of poetry, which also I haven't shared. But I noticed that a lot of people started identifying with the stories that I've told, and I can see how that can heal not just me, but also other people that hear the stories. So therapeutic for myself at first and for my family, and now it's evolved into hopefully helping other people heal as well, even though I don't know any of the stories of their family, but we have pretty similar stories, I think, in one way or another. And that's it. Just the healing part of it is just a very profound part of my reasoning.
Thank you for sharing, Maribel. Yeah, I think we come back to the idea of or to the theme of healing. And I think if that is something that is important to you and that you're finding through your art, like that needs to be included in your artistic statement. And Maribel, you kind of lightly touched on the imposter syndrome.
Yes.
That I think, there's a large segment of our population that has that, right? Because if we look at, BIPOC community, we are actually a global majority. And so the artistic statement, you really have to, don't think about it as a selling point. Don't think about you're trying to sell yourself, like sell what you do, or really, really think about who you are and why this is important. And if that is at the cost of an application or a grant, then I firmly believe that that's not where you were supposed to be. But if you are honest with what is important to you and what you want to do, you will find yourself doing the work that is important to you. And so it also sometimes artistic statements also protect us and let us know, like, yeah, okay, we can't be in every single space as much as we'd like to be. We can only do so much, and not every single space is going to be open to what we are creating. And that's okay. And so I think that's really important. There's also a couple words I just wanted to, that have popped out that I wanted to offer like other words for. So I've heard a lot about documenting. I think anybody who documents is, we could say a historian or a non-traditional historian, or one of the terms that I heard recently, I think from a group in East Los Angeles that I really liked, was a barrio historian. And so documenting the stories of the barrio. So I think look at the things that you say that you do or that you're identifying, and then maybe take a step back. If it wasn't you that were doing these things, if you weren't the one documenting or writing, what would you call that person? Would you call them a historian? Would you call them a writer, a poet? Like, what are those words that you would describe? And kind of take yourself out of the picture so that you can be a little bit more objective, right? Because you're kind of like, well, I just do a little bit of everything. And it's like, oh, okay, no, you're a multifaceted, multidisciplinary artist. And that's true, you know? I think non-traditional artists are also important. I firmly believe that everybody is an artist, whether you went to art school or not. It doesn't matter, you just need the opportunity to create art and you're an artist. You can be an artist that's a really good artist. You can be an artist that's okay. You can be an artist like I'm a really bad visual artist, but you're still an artist. So I think it's, if you can take the step back and be like, it doesn't matter whether I'm a good artist or a bad artist. The thing that matters is that I'm an artist and I'm creating this. And because I'm creating it this way, I'm now a writer, or I'm now a historian, or I'm now a poet or a videographer. Feel like, give yourself the space to claim those things, right? What is it? If you don't toot your own horn, who's gonna, right? Sometimes we have to toot our own horn. So the next step of this, which we're kind of out of time, would be kind of putting these in sentences together. So the general format would be, we have that first sentence, that introduction, and we have that, we always want to start with our name. I keep on saying this because it is so, so important. You can do it in third person if it makes, like I do mine in third person so I can like not feel weird talking about myself. And then you definitely want to include your questions 1 through 4. If it's under 500 words, your questions 1 through 4 need to be on there. Who you are, how you identify. Pronouns are, I feel like, are kind of like in a, like, I feel like you can include your pronouns on there, but I feel like that's like an LGBTQ, like if that is part of your experience and that's how it, like that's the community that you're serving and that's the community that you're living in and that's your world, I think that's definitely part of your artistic statement. I think if you are not part of that community, then I think having like a conversation with yourself or having a conversation with somebody about like, what does that look like and why is it important that you include on there? That's my personal opinion. I think whenever you're entering a new community or if you're choosing to identify with a community, like it is important to have those conversations with the community that you're identifying with. And then what are your artistic elements? So how do you use your art to convey all the ideas that we just talked about? And so if like we said, if we use film, why film? Why is film important? Or why are paintings or printmaking or poetry important? And which ones, and then taking the time, just like, I do a little bit of everything, but I use poetry a lot because it's easier for me to get into spaces because I'm well known as a poet, because, whatever the reason is, because I feel like I connect people better. And so why is it that specific art medium helps you express yourself the most? And I know we are at time. Ophelia, do you think that if people wanted to send their artistic statements, they could maybe email them, I don't know, to me or you, and I could give some feedback on them throughout the week?
Yeah,
So just-
absolutely. And we can, I will send everybody a link to the recording, and then we'll send out the questions also. I'll send an email out to everybody that has the link and the question, so that way you have that to refer back to. And yes, they can absolutely feel free to send your statements to the Cascabel group email, and I can forward them to you, Alex, or if you want to share your email, you can do that as well right now in the chat. And I'm happy to help kind of facilitate that too. And Christina,
Okay.
you have a question? I saw, I noticed your hand was up also. Or I didn't know if it had just kind of stayed up from the last time.
Yeah, I apologize. I just never put it down. Sorry.
That's okay. I do that all the time. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't kind of overlooking.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
But yeah, Alex, if you want to, we can do it either way.
Let's do it all through Cascabel. Is that okay? And you can just forward that way.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can organize them in a folder.
Shooting my email.
And then if y'all want a copy of the questions, I'll send them over to Ophelia. Yeah, I can send them over to Ophelia if you want to keep on working with them. With my workshops, like if you would like to use a workshop or anything like that, I think that a lot of these things have been created collectively from workshops that I've attended, from maestros or maestras that I've been under. And so none of this is 100% mine. They're all different things that I've learned from different people, including Ophelia, including Maribel. And so all that I ask is that we recognize like where the workshop comes from. I know that I have friends who've taught like poetry workshops that I've put together. And so if there's anything that you'd like to use, like I'm totally open to conversation. You know, I just want to make sure that the work, whoever is doing the work is recognized. So if you have any other questions, you know, let me know. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and close out our circle. Thank you, Anita. If you would like to type in the chat, just to close out the circle, if you would like to type in just 1 or 2 words of what you're feeling as we're leaving, and then we can leave those in the space in the chat.
Yeah, and then really quickly before everybody kind of signs off, I will be hosting a vision boarding kind of workshop here in the next week or so. I'll post all of that information up probably tomorrow. And then in September, we will be hosting a panel discussion that has several different artists that it'll be kind of like an artist 101 panel discussion where everybody can we'll have some answer questions about just like what is the artistic process for these specific artists, and just tips and ideas on general things like how do you hang art, and just some very basic things, because sometimes I think everybody just kind of assumes that everybody knows these things, and sometimes we need help and we have questions about how things work in the art world. And so it'll be a good opportunity to hear from some very seasoned artists how they do things, and we'll be able to answer your questions. And then in September, we are also going to have a plática with the Chicanx psychology group in Austin, and they'll be doing kind of a self-care workshop for creatives as well. And so all of that will be posted and shared on social media soon. But everybody that's here is hopefully will be interested in participating in the other things that we have coming up later this month and in September. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much for hosting, Ophelia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Alex, for doing this. I think the more we kind of support each other this way, the better. So, and it was really nice kind of meeting everybody too.
Can I say something really quick? Is that okay?
Sure.
So I'm somebody that I'm sure some of y'all can relate, maybe. I don't like writing. I put that off, like, you know. And today I was like organizing some things, and I know that for sure, like there are things that obviously that we need to do that will help us, right? In our life and everything. And so I was organizing some things today, and I like writing random quotes, things that motivate me, things that just are good reminders. So I just wanted to share that. Because I feel in my spirit to share with you guys this quote that I wrote down. I don't know when I wrote this down, but I was like, this is really dope. So I just wanted to share with you guys. It says, you won't find success by putting off the things that can radically improve your life. So I just thought that was really cool, because this is something that I feel that can radically improve our lives. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ophelia, for hosting this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You.
Ophelia, if I could stay behind and just chat with you
Yeah, absolutely.
super quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you, everybody.